Well, yes, indeed. We're turning our attention now to security-related matters. We've got two gentlemen here with us to speak to that particular matter. We've got Innocent Chukuma, who is the Regional Director, West Africa for Ford Foundation, and we're expecting Sadiq Shehu, retired Group Captain and a former Air Force spokesman, hoping that he will join us soon. But let's start with this comment. Garba Shehu, Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, did release a statement, and that, if you can see that, the first of that quote says, the position of the Nigerian government is that the Boko Haram terrorism has been degraded and defeated. The real Boko Haram we know is defeated. What we have now is a mixture of remnants of the Boko Haram fugitive criminals and the Islam in Maghreb together with West African terrorists bonding together. It goes on to say, at the moment, the Nigerian government under President Muhammadu Buhari has made the country safer than it met it in 2015 when he took power. Boko Haram terrorism was active in nearly half the number of states in the country. The administration has embarked on an ambitious electronic digital border monitoring scheme to curtail the porosity of the borders and working with the UN agencies, the World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, donor agencies, and friendly countries has started providing solutions to backwardness in development and poverty in the sub-region, because at the very heart of recruitment schemes of the terrorists lies the issue of poverty. We'll come back to the rest a little later. But these are some of the submissions in that particular script. How does that sit with you?
Actually, when I read the statement, I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. But I know where it's coming from. In strategic communication, you are told to stay on the message. So what the government is simply doing is restating what they said some 3 years ago. I think it was in 2016, where they came up with this message of technical defeat of Boko Haram. And you and I know that between then and now, a lot has happened on the negative side in terms of deteriorating. But the government do not want to recount that statement. Instead, they have gone further to make further statements about, oh, it's no longer Boko Haram, it's some criminal renegades, West African bandits, you know, collaborating with Islam in Maghreb, and then supplied weapons from Libya. Now they've extended it to Iraq and Syria, which is all defensive. I think what we need to all do is to agree that the situation has actually deteriorated. Yes, there was a time Boko Haram was attacking Abuja and parts of the northwest, and now they've been contained somewhatly in Borno State. But the other elements have also sprung up. We now see a new group called Headers, or whichever name the state is willing to admit, who are in fact retaking those territories, or if you like, attacking those areas that Boko Haram used to do in the past. When you talk about Abuja, we all know a few months ago, people could not travel by road between Abuja and Kaduna. They all had to resort to rail lines, especially rich people, which they are still doing till now. We know that highways in different parts of the country have been taken over. So it may well not be Boko Haram that is attacking Abuja and Northwest, but other groups have come in to fill that vacuum, which we call, you know, crime displacement. Because
isn't that what he's referring to as those from the Islamic Maghreb?
But who are these? We didn't start hearing about Boko Haram collaborating with elements. What do they call them from the Middle East? Under Jonathan time, that was what we were told. I mean, Libya did not collapse today. It's been how many years that Gaddafi died? So I see them as exercise in offering excuses. We know that the situation is bad. It's not only in Nigeria that he's talking, but we need a government to admit, look here, we have a problem. We need all hands on deck. But telling us Boko Haram is defeated, it can be described as insulting to the average Nigerians that experience this on a daily basis.
One of the things that one wonders is, I mean, you've been around for long enough to know that there's always this shifting scenario as far as security challenges are concerned. We didn't hear of Boko Haram in 1999. We didn't hear of it in 2000 and all of that. So perhaps that is the position that the government is taking now, that look, there was no Boko before 10 years ago, and after 10 years, they say that Boko Haram has been technically defeated. We have remnants of them in operation, but then there are other elements, that are playing up, which is this cattle, rustling, farmer-herder clashes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we should also understand sometimes you have all this game of changing names. Sometimes they're called bandits, depending on where they're operating. Sometimes they're called Bahadas, sometimes they're called Boko Haram and all of that. To the average Nigerian, insecurity is increasing, and they want the government of the day to come to grips with it. The average Nigerian cannot separate between who is a Boko Haram member, who is a bandit, who is a renegade, who is a member of IPSWA, all those names that we like to throw about. The everyday experience is that things are worsening for people, and we need to get grips with that. And why is it that the response have not worked as effectively as we want them so far? Is because people no longer have trust and confidence in formal agencies. As a result of this shifting blame of one group to another, people want them to be dealt with, which was why they voted for a change. And now one is not saying that government has not done some, but we need a government that will communicate to people, we are having problem here, this is what we are doing to bring other stakeholders on board, and all of that. So lately now we're talking about launching of community policing, which was launched in 2004 by Tafa Balogun. But again, in all those launchings and pronouncements, the last mile of it is never addressed. Now, last mile in telecommunication is how do you get telecommunication networks to the retail end user, which is the customer, in this case, Nigerian people who want to experience a different kind of security. All this thing ends in Abuja and state headquarters, on at the level of the local divisions, where people get everyday service. They are not seeing them. And that's why where we want government to focus on this last mile, get these services to people so that they can experience it differently.
One of the things that a number of people have also said is, look, these security challenges we are facing in itself are just signs or symptoms of a fundamental problem, which is also echoed in that press statement from the presidency, which says that at the very heart of recruitment schemes of the terrorists lies the issue of poverty, which the president also alluded to in one of his speeches at the June 12 speech as well. So do you see anything government is doing to deal with the root cause, which is poverty?
I see pronouncements. I see policies being announced, but how do we are now in the 5th year, right, of the President Buhari government. And when I still read and hear, we will. We have 3 years down the line. People need to start experiencing this differently. I'm not saying government is not doing anything, but the pace and the magnitude, people are not feeling it. People are not really. I mean, if we have to be frank with ourselves, I know in government circles, telling the truth as it is somewhatly sometimes not the preferred way that they go about. But we have gotten to a situation where we have to tell ourselves the frank truth. Whatever is it that government is doing and other actors are doing, the impact is actually minimal. And we need to ramp them up.
Now, so the presidency says Boko Haram has been defeated. I mean, Boko Haram, as it is known, has been defeated. But then the United Nations just yesterday said that the Boko Haram insurgency is far from over in Nigeria. In fact, I'll take a quote quickly from the United Nations Humanitarian and Resident Coordinator in Nigeria, Edward Cullen. He says, the crisis that started 10 years ago has devastated entire communities in the Northeast is still far from over. Went on to give the death toll 27,000 civilians killed in 10 years, over 2 million people displaced. And the president is saying Boko Haram is defeated. So it begs the question, where does this key into the tactical approach in defeating Boko Haram? Is this, I mean, what value is this statement coming out to say Boko Haram has been defeated when 5 days ago, for example, 60 persons were killed during that funeral procession by Boko Haram? You have the governor of Borno State urging monarchs to return home. And you have the mother of Leah Sharibu yesterday still begging the federal government to help secure the release of Leah Sharibu. All these things. So you wonder, why this statement now?
Well, you know, it's not just the United Nations that is saying that things are, in fact, getting worse in some areas. The new governor of Borno State just 2 days ago also stated that whatever weapons that the security forces think they have, the Boko Haram elements have much more lethal weapons that enables them to strike at ease than the security are able to respond to. So the thing is that government wants to stay on the message that they have defeated Boko Haram. And if you also look at even the messaging from the president himself directly when he received Southwest leaders, he was speaking differently. He was promising what they will do, which includes, they will deploy CCTV, they will license states that want to deploy drones, community policing initiatives will be introduced, and regional, states within regions are coming up to say, Southwest said they will set up a regional security initiative. The Southeast said they will set up forest guard and all of that. All this speak to the fact that people are feeling that things are getting worse and more actions need to be taken. So Bob Garba Shehu, still staying on his message of defeat or technical defeat, is carrying that on. But you and I know on the ground, because even in Borno State where people are not able to go into their rural areas. So some highways have been secured. Local government headquarters, people can go back there. But the last mile, the everyday life, people living in these communities are not really able to go back.
So what should the government be saying now? What should the statement, for example, be like?
We need government to tell us where the real problems are, because things are not getting, and call for help. It's not just United Nations, it's actually Nigerian people. I mean, we have had situations in this country, even in that same Borno. There was a time, I think it was under Jonathan government, when things were so bad, the youth had to set up a civilian JTF to help a government. And they contributed in no small measure in the technical defeat the government is claiming. We are not saying that our government should be magicians. We know we are living in a country and at a time where security is really, really serious. We want to work with government, but government really need to come out to tell us where the issues are.
If the message coming from the presidency is saying one thing, and according to you, the reality is saying something different, doesn't that further erode the trust quotient between the people? And
that is actually at the root of the lack of trust and confidence between government, security agencies on the one part, and the people who are feeling it differently. That is it.
But now I haven't seen the response that the president gave to those who visited the other day, and different groups coming up with different meetings. Because we still await that report, I think it's UN, Human Rights Watch, the human rights group in the country, they also had that meeting. And the president spoke about, yes, they can go ahead and develop their recommendations so they can come up with a white paper. Doesn't that demonstrate intent to ensure that, yes, look, we're willing to ensure that things are addressed? Probably we take them headlong.
But public communication, yes, when you have one-on-one meetings and all of that, these things can be admitted. But what you tell the people can go a long way in giving them confidence or further eroding that trust. So when you come and assert, as Garba Shehu asserted the other day in the statement that he made, yes, these people are technically defeated. Oh, the people you are seeing are no longer Boko Haram of old. These are new elements and all of that. And the everyday experience of people is that the type of attacks they are experiencing, whether it's a bombing, is the same strategies that Boko Haram, they can't tell the difference. So they wonder whether government is telling them the truth or government is serious about this. So it actually comes down to communication, because what do you expect from a leader, a president, is to inspire. But when things are going bad like this, you come and inspire the people. The work will be done by the citizens and the agencies. We are not expecting our president to carry gun and chase. It's mobilize the whole country. The country is deeply, deeply divided.
Do you see a role for the National Assembly here? Because all of this commentary about, because all of these structures being set up in different places by different regions, it still has to do with the law. Yeah. Should National Assembly have or be playing a huge role, and what can that be?
A lot of recommendations. We have had several presidential panels on police and security reform. We have had the ones of civil society, all recommending amending the Constitution to decentralize the police force. Enable states that are willing and have the resources, to also help. But all these things falls on the altar of voting, because amendment can only be made when you get a certain number of people. Some sections requires three-quarters, some section requires simple majority. So unless those numbers are there, you can't amend anything.
Aren't we likely to get the numbers now? Because if many of them think that, oh yeah, we need to do something about security, why wouldn't the votes come?
So in this country, we don't vote on the basis of problems or needs that we're facing. We vote on the basis of fear. If we license some states or give states powers to set up security forces, what would they do with it? And there are also sound bases for that feeling, because the nature of the division in the society, the ethnic and sectarian violence will have people feel that if you come to states where one group are dominant, maybe ethnic or religious, and they have powers to set up their own security forces, they will use it to repress the other, which is where confidence building comes in. This is where engaging the community. Okay, we are not going to roll this thing out fully. We may start on a pilot basis before it is rolled out there in full.
Isn't that what is going on now? Because if the forest guards, several community vigilante groups, and this is all part of it.
They can be armed. You can set up whatever. It's just like you have LASMA here, you have here. But when you are dealing with insurgents, like the governor of Borno State said, have lethal weapons that are more than the one security agencies have, and you send people with sticks and all of that, you are sending them to commit suicide. So states and regions can set up whatever name they call them. They can call them police. They can arm them, because all these are things governed by the Constitution of the country.
This comment you said now about the insurgents having more lethal weapons and all of that, that definitely has some funding coming from somewhere, and I think the presidency has also made reference to some foreign infusion of funds to finance this insurgency and all of that. Is there anything that you think government can do?
There is no doubt that criminal elements have, if you like, parallel systems of moving funds. And we are also living in societies that are heavily cash-based. It's only a fraction of financial transactions in our country that goes through the formal system, because you have to ask yourself how many Nigerians or what percentage of Nigerians are banked. So if you don't have the cash transactions going through processes that are tracked, then it becomes very easy for people to move money. Some may come from abroad, but actually the predominant part of it may come here, because if people believe in the causes where these elements are championing, they will find ways of contributing to them. And that's how they've raised money, which is why it's difficult, in spite of government recognizing over the years that these people are getting significant funding. But tracking it is difficult, because these monies go through informal sources.
Despite the continental intelligence security?
Continental intelligence sources, these are formal systems. But we're living in an economy that is over 80% informal. So all those frameworks deal with the minor percentage that goes through the banking system or whatever formal means of transferring money that you have in this country.
Now, so far, I think we seem to have the solution. At least we know where the problems are. Illicit flows of funds, for example, funding this, we know it needs to be stopped. Having community policing, for example, having a security system that knows what is happening, where it is happening per time, that's another solution. We have a lot of the solutions ahead of us, and it seems we still don't have enough will to pull these things together and ensure they are implemented. So where is the disconnect here? I keep wondering.
You see, we have a system that doesn't follow through till you deliver to the last mile. We all operate on ad hoc basis. You know, this is trending now. Okay, remember a few months ago, it was Abuja-Kaduna Road. All efforts were focused on reducing that. Now you've moved to somewhere, Akure, which is why you are having all this flurry of activities, meeting with traditional rulers. They say they are deploying helicopters to bomb out. That one reduced. We go back and wait for another flashpoint to arrive, and then we respond to the same. But really coming out with a strategy and saying, over the next 3 to 5 years, we are going to stay the course. The same way they want to stay the course on communicating to us that Boko Haram has been defeated. We want the same measure to saying we are going to follow through this. Community policing was launched in 2004. What happened after that? Now, CCTV they are talking about. Remember a few years ago, Nigeria awarded over $200 million contract to some company to deploy it across the state without discussion with state government. A place where I used around Alausa, every weekend I used to jog there. All of a sudden, we saw all of them. Nobody is talking about the electricity to power them. And when you don't have electricity to power them, people come and remove them. So we really need to move away from procurement, because right now we are talking about, in that statement, Garbashe, we're expecting Trocana helicopters we bought from the US, and then we buy them, we use them a few years, we don't even have budget to maintain them, we start looking for another latest equipment to buy. You can't run a system like this. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
So we need a strategy for security.
Yes. You know, they say the best strategy is the one that is implemented, not the one that you spend elaborate money bringing consultants from around the world. But if after they're developing them, you put them on the shelf, they will never make a difference. We have to keep implementing them, because it's when you implement them, you identify the problems, you fix them, and you continue. And another government builds on that. Because they are talking about intelligence-led policing. We forget that under Solomon Arase, he actually equipped a very strong unit. They were trained. What did Idris Botum do? He disbanded them. And now we're back. You know, we just keep going round if we're not making use of our heads.
But now that the states are coming into this, visiting the presidency, definitely you expect results.
I don't know, except the Constitution is amended, so that whatever initiative they are setting up can have the full back end of the law and the Constitution to actually train people, because you have to respond to the elements you are dealing with a capacity to dilute them.
I think what the president said about state policing, if and when that comes to play, you know, will help.
I don't think the Constitution will be amended, because these things have been on the table for quite a long time. And before you amend them, we have to build the confidence of the people that if we give these people this power, that it will be used reasonably. That is what the issues are. The intention is there, but like I said, when we get down to vote, we vote out of fear.
All right, we'll see how this eventually pans out. Innocent Chukwuma is the Regional Director of West Africa for 4-5 Nation. Thank you for coming on this morning. We'll be back. We'll have one more matter on the burner. Stay with us.